They said he had everything: power, wealth, influence, the kind of life most people only dream about. His name was Alexander Grant, a billionaire whose empire stretched across continents, whose decisions could sway markets, and whose presence commanded rooms filled with the most powerful people in the world. But behind the tailored suits, the private jets, and the endless headlines, there was a man who had grown numb to it all. Until one night, in the most unexpected place, everything changed. And it all began with a waitress. It was a rainy evening in New York City, the kind of night where the streets glistened under the neon lights and umbrellas collided in the rush of people trying to escape the downpour. Alexander had just left a high-profile charity gala, one of those events where everyone smiled too wide and spoke in rehearsed tones. He was tired of the performance, tired of the masks. Instead of heading back to his penthouse, he told his driver to stop at a small diner tucked away on a quiet corner. It wasn't the kind of place billionaires frequented, but that was exactly why he wanted to go. He craved something real. The diner smelled of coffee and fried food, the kind of aroma that clung to the walls and reminded people of simpler times. He walked in, drawing a few curious glances, though no one recognized him immediately. He liked that. He slid into a booth, his expensive watch catching the dim light, and picked up the menu. That's when she appeared. Her name was Emily. She was young, but not naive. Her eyes carried a quiet strength, the kind that came from working hard and facing life head-on. She wore a simple uniform, her hair tied back, and yet there was something magnetic about her presence. She approached his table with a smile that wasn't forced, a smile that felt genuine in a world where he had grown used to fake ones. "What can I get you tonight?" she asked, her voice warm, steady, unshaken by the stranger before her. Alexander ordered coffee, black, and a slice of pie. He didn't need the food, but he wanted an excuse to stay. As she walked away, he found himself watching her, not in the way men often watched women, but with curiosity. There was something about the way she moved, the way she spoke to customers, the way she laughed softly when an older man cracked a joke. She was present, alive, unpretentious. And for the first time in years, Alexander felt something stir inside him. Emily returned with his order, setting the cup and plate down with practiced ease. "Long night?" she asked, noticing the wariness in his eyes. He nodded, offering a faint smile. "You could say that." She didn't press, didn't pry. She simply gave him space, and that silence felt more comforting than any conversation he'd had at the gala earlier. As the rain continued outside, Alexander lingered in the diner. He listened to the hum of conversations, the clinking of dishes, the rhythm of life that was so different from his own. Emily checked on him occasionally, each time leaving him with a sense of calm he couldn't explain. When he finally left, he found himself thinking about her, about the simplicity of her world compared to the chaos of his own. Days passed, but the memory of that night stayed with him. He returned to the diner again and again, always finding her there. Sometimes she served him, sometimes she was busy with other tables, but each time he saw her, he felt that same pull. He began to ask questions, learning little pieces of her life. She was studying part-time, trying to save money to finish her degree. She had dreams, not of wealth or fame, but of making a difference, of building something meaningful. Her world was small, but her vision was vast. Alexander admired that. He admired her resilience, her determination, her refusal to let circumstances define her. And slowly, he began to open up. He didn't tell her everything. He didn't reveal the full extent of who he was, but he shared pieces of himself he rarely shared with anyone. She listened, not because she wanted something from him, but because she cared. That was new to him. That was rare. One evening, as the diner quieted down, Emily sat across from him during her break. They talked about books, about music, about the little things that made life beautiful. Alexander found himself laughing, genuinely laughing, something he hadn't done in years. He realized then that he wasn't just intrigued by her, he was captivated. And it terrified him, because Alexander Grant was a man who controlled everything. He controlled his businesses, his image, his future. But with Emily, he felt vulnerable. He felt exposed. And yet, he couldn't stay away. Their connection grew, slowly, naturally, like a flame that refused to die out. But it wasn't without challenges. Emily didn't know who he truly was, not yet. To her, he was just Alex, a man who liked coffee and pie, who listened to her stories and made her laugh. And he wanted to keep it that way, at least for a while. He wanted her to see him, not the billionaire, not the headlines, but the man beneath it all. But secrets have a way of surfacing. One night, a group of businessmen walked into the diner, recognizing Alexander immediately. They greeted him with respect, their voices loud enough for Emily to hear. Confusion crossed her face as she realized the man she thought she knew was someone far more than he had let on. Later, when she confronted him, her voice trembled. "Why didn't you tell me?" Alexander hesitated, his heart pounding. "Because I didn't want you to see the billionaire. I wanted you to see me." Emily looked at him, torn between anger and understanding. "You should have trusted me," she whispered. And in that moment, he realized he might lose her. But Alexander wasn't a man who gave up easily. He began to show her his world, not the glamorous parts, but the real ones. He took her to his office late at night, showing her the weight of decisions he carried. He introduced her to the charities he supported, the lives he tried to change. He wanted her to see that beneath the wealth, he was still human, still searching for meaning. And slowly, Emily began to understand. Their relationship deepened, tested by differences, strengthened by honesty. Emily challenged him in ways no one else dared. She reminded him of the value of simplicity, of the beauty in small moments. And he, in turn, gave her opportunities to chase her dreams, not by handing her everything, but by supporting her, believing in her. Together, they built something neither of them had expected. But love stories are never without obstacles. The media eventually discovered their relationship, splashing headlines across tabloids, questioning Emily's intentions, painting her as someone chasing wealth. The scrutiny was brutal, relentless. Emily struggled under the weight of it, wondering if she could survive in his world. Alexander stood by her, fiercely, refusing to let the noise dictate their story. "They don't know you," he told her. "I do, and that's all that matters." Through storms and whispers, through doubt and fear, they held on. Because what they had was real. It wasn't about money or status. It was about two souls finding each other in the most unlikely place. A billionaire and a waitress, worlds apart, yet drawn together by something stronger than circumstance. And in the end, it wasn't the wealth that defined Alexander Grant. It wasn't the empire or the headlines. It was the choice he made, the choice to love someone who reminded him of what truly mattered. Emily didn't just change his life, she saved it. She gave him back the part of himself he thought he had lost forever. So when people ask about the billionaire who fell for the waitress, they didn't just tell a story of romance. They told a story of transformation, of courage, of love that defied expectations. Because sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin in the most ordinary places. And sometimes the richest man in the room is the one who finally learns that love, not money, is the greatest wealth of all. And that is how Alexander Grant, the billionaire who had everything, discovered the one thing he had been missing all along. A heart that beat not for power, not for fame, but for love. A love that began with a waitress, a smile, and a cup of coffee on a rainy night.